Jazzcast Pros.
What's the real deal with AI?
Warning, I like to watch you while you sleep.
Today, we will be discussing everything AI with ROC AI founders Cody, Henehan, and Brendon Frazer.
ROC AI is a team of innovators passionate about integrating AI into businesses like yours. Founded right here in Rochester, Cody and Brendon are dedicated to bridging the gap between cutting-edge AI technology and practical business solutions. And their mission is to empower companies to thrive in this digital age and not get left behind. Let's dive in. Welcome to Elevating Enterprise, the podcast that gives you a 100,000-foot view of success.
So you can see exactly what it takes to grow and sustain your business.
Subscribe and join us as we elevate enterprises, starting with yours. We are here with the CEO of ROC AI, Cody. Can you start by giving us a bit of your background?
Yeah, definitely. I've been involved in business from a very young age. My father started a local HVAC company actually when I was 5 years old. So I grew up with somebody building a business from a young age, learning all the trials and errors, the good, the bad. And it was really kind of a unique process that I was involved in day in and day out. And it was, quite a bit of fun. Most kids were out playing. I was in the business, that's what all my summers were. So, over the years, I've built that entrepreneurial mindset, worked for a few other businesses and said, it's time to do my own thing. So about 9 years ago, I started my first HVAC company, which grew into a few partnerships and starting a geothermal company. I then started another company with a good friend of mine who is in the military. That was a government contracting agency, which is still in operation to this day, which is really kind of what ended up getting me into the artificial intelligence world. As a business owner, you're trying to look for how can we do things better? For me, that was how can we use artificial intelligence to drive data analytics and extrapolate data at a high rate, especially with what our strong suit is in the intelligence world. So we ended up going to the AI4 conference this last year, and we saw some of the most incredible, crazy things. And that's where my, entrepreneurial mind kind of went wild. And I met Brendon out there, who is also from Rochester. So Brendon was a mutual friend at the time. And we met out there and we were both just wide-eyed, just looking at everything. It was awesome, kind of euphoric, just seeing what was really out there.
Let's stop right there. So you mentioned your partner, Brendon. This is a good time to bring in Mr. Frazer as well. So Brendon, can you tell us a little bit about your role in ROC AI and how you got to this point?
Yeah, so I'm the Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer and co-founder of ROC AI and Silver Ray. So AI was a pretty big deal to me. I was in marketing and ran my own agency as well as a bunch of other marketing background stuff that I won't get into. But AI has actually kind of been used in that for a while, even before the dawn of ChatGPT. But we'll touch on that in a minute. So I've been kind of using it for many years now. But then the day ChatGPT came out, like many others, people said, "Okay, wow, that's crazy." So my background is really started there, pretty much saying, okay, how can we skip ahead? Because this is going to big places and we want to get ahead of it. So I actually became the first director of marketing and artificial intelligence in the country, based off that idea, finding a company that shared that vision. And then I wanted to take it even further. So like Cody mentioned, when we met in Vegas at AI4, we kind of put our minds together, Cody's entrepreneurial and my more technical background, and said, okay, how do we bring Rochester to the next level? How do we bring USA to the next level? How do we bring the world to the next level? Because there's ways and uses that we can take with artificial intelligence that nobody's really come up with yet. And every single day, that's what we're working towards, to actually make a significant impact on our community and people in the most positive way possible.
Well, first, I just think that's amazing that two Rochester boys find each other out in Vegas. I mean, how kismet is that? That's amazing.
It's how this has really worked. This is how the entire process has worked. It's crazy to say that, but then that's how our partnerships, which are global at this point, have worked. Meeting the right people from the right places at the right time in this industry. It's really an amazing community, especially with our partners with IBM. and Google and Microsoft. Everybody kind of understands that this is a team effort moving forward. So, everybody really does come together, and it's so, empowering to see that. And we want that for our community too, which is why we're, excited about what we're doing. But of course, yeah, I mean, when Brendon and I met, we're like, oh my God, I think after a week and a half, we were, talking about what we were going to do. We're like, you know what? Let's put what we're doing aside and let's talk about some other stuff. And it just grew from there. I think within, 3 days, I had an LLC up and running.
Wow. And so Ruben and I met you guys at an event that you threw. I think it was just called ROC AI here in Rochester over at Tony D's. So with being the director of marketing of artificial intelligence, how did that event kind of play into your goals and what you want to introduce to the Rochester area?
We through that event, really, we were trying to find the most like-minded people in Rochester, those that kind of understood the vision and the passion that we have. AI is a very deep world, and a lot of people stop, I'd say, at the surface level, ChatGPT, chatbot kind of idea and concept of it, but we're looking for the people that see the depth and can embrace that, and that we could actually work with people like yourselves. We met a couple other people at our event that were exactly what we were looking for, those people that see that vision, see where things can go, and are looking for people to align with to make something bigger. And that's really been our main focus. I mean, I would say our event was a great success. The partnerships that we've made just in that time are really exciting. The conversations that we get to have and finding those individuals was instrumental in kind of aligning with taking things to the next level, making something that impacts even more people in the best way possible.
Absolutely. So you mentioned this a couple times already, and this was going to be actually one of my first questions. So Chat GPT was released in 2022, and that was the first time that most of us, myself included, actively, willingly, knowingly used artificial intelligence. But I have a feeling that we have unknowingly been using AI well before then. So can you touch on some of the ways that we have been using AI and maybe didn't realize it?
Yeah, of course. So I would say the easiest place to kind of start with that is search engines. So, when you Googled something, they were using sort of I don't want to say a primitive version because it was technically what we refer to as artificial intelligence these days, but it wasn't as expanded on as it is right now. But it would take that and use the AI algorithm to find your best search based off their SEO keywords and things like that, and find you the results that you were looking for. But also, when you search one thing and 500 things, whether it would come in, yes, that's like an SEM kind of thing, but to do that automated in an automated way, it used a version of AI that existed before it was popular. And the other one that I would really like to touch on, because when people think about it, it's like, oh wait, yeah, Amazon Alexa is essentially the same thing as well. And people have been using Alexa for years, but I mean, if you think about it, people have been using Alexa for a very similar thing to what they use ChatGPT for. Like, hey, what's the weather today? And it just finds that for you, finds your location and all that, and just tells you, or what's the answer to this question? What year did this happen? And it was able to like process what you said and find the answer and deliver it. So that's a very easy to grasp way that AI has kind of been around us for a while now.
Where do you see AI in business going in the next 5 years? Because just on the backdrop of the last 3 years, and I can only imagine how quick and how much different the world will look like in 2030.
So yeah, that's the $1 million question.
It's so algorithmic too. I mean, if you look at where they said it would be in 2030, we're there now. We've already hit those milestones. So it's one of those things where at this point we can't really calculate what that looks like. But I do think that it's going to be a big part of how we operate. Businesses are going to have to adapt to this, unfortunately, or they'll be left behind. So that's why we really want to help people, break this curve now before it becomes too detrimental to their workplace, because this is their passion. You're a business owner. That's what you stand behind. And we just want to show people that this doesn't have to be the end. This is how you could be better. even if you don't like it, because, we don't want to see you fail just because you couldn't adapt. So it's really important to us, and how we operate. But yeah, I mean, Brendon, how do you feel?
Again, that's the $1 million question. We've seen how far it's come since 2022, where it was really popularized, and it really hasn't calmed down since. AI is still the topic of every conversation. I mean, there's different statistics out there about what the predicted market cap of artificial intelligence is going to be by 2030, so 5 years from now. I mean, there's those ranges from over 800 billion to 15 trillion. Like, that's a it's such a huge range. So, and these are by folks that are saying, like, they're able to have deep insights into this data. Well, they still have that big of a range. So obviously there's so many unknown factors that it's like, what new technology is going to disrupt it? Because I feel like every few months there's a new giant leap in advancement. This current one, most recent one that I see impacting us being agents. I definitely recommend everybody to, at least do a little bit of research on agents, what they are now, and where they're going to go, because it could be an extremely powerful tool for every single person across any sector. Even in the trades, this could be a very powerful thing.
Yeah, explain AI agents, because that's the question I'm getting.
So an AI agent is one that you can assign a multi-step task. So let's say I want it to create the outline of a document, review the document, and then move it to this platform, and then upload it and take action on that website based off of the data that's implemented on that form, all by itself, without me having to check it, without me having to move that piece of information or the document myself. It can move and do things across platforms by itself, and do tasks by itself. So it's essentially like a worker that works for you, and you say, do these tasks, and it does it for you, versus ChatGPT being, write the code that does this as a single step task, right? Or tell me a detailed breakdown about how to change the oil and tires on my car. Single step task. It'll tell you how to do all that, but it won't say, take this information on how to change my oil and my tires, and then go to my website and then create a new blog post in the back end of my website, my CMS, and then write an article based off of how to do that. That's going to be high in an SEO score around automotive, and then publish it. All of those steps done by one agent with one command. Again,
Wow, I need to get me one of
yeah.
those.
Well, that's what everybody's trying to build, the next latest and greatest, best one. I do think that there's going to be a lot of growing pains around those, because, with every step, because AI is not perfect, there are hallucinations. ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, they all say AI can make mistakes, and it absolutely can. And it's very good at sounding correct when it's wrong. So, there's been some pretty funny, social media posts about AI telling people, hey, if you want to keep the cheese on your pizza and it's getting too melty, add some glue to it. Like, I'm not sure if you've seen that one moving around, but it does happen. And it's funny because, like,
Wow.
obviously nobody's going to actually do that, or at least I hope not. But if the AI is saying to, and we want to make sure that those steps don't happen. And that's why, like, data integrity for IBM is such a big key aspect of models. It's an absolute must. So we have to make sure our models do not hallucinate and give bad information like that.
LLM, large language models. What does that actually really mean?
So the large language models, that's basically describing the models that are trained off of a specific data source and running through a GPU. There are definitely different types of models. It really depends on what our end user is trying to use, whether it's generative or predictive. But there are so many different types of LLMs out there, and that's what we are really starting to specialize in, is the customization of these LLMs, which is describing the model that we're training for our end user.
So if I'm a business owner and I want to work with ROC AI, Do you actually work with me to develop something, or is it more so just helping me to find the right, maybe it's an IBM or a Microsoft product that can help my business?
Yeah, it's really both. We are, business consultants in a sense. We have to kind of understand every aspect of how business works and how we can integrate AI into each of those sectors. We do that in a few different ways. We might work with smaller businesses. They have different budgets, obviously. So we might start and say, you need to use, smaller programs that are already out on the market today that already exist. Microsoft has quite a few. We use some of their, like Copilot, things like that, that most people use day in and day out. We start there and we implement, hundreds and hundreds of AI models, depending on what that business needs around them to become more efficient. But in a lot of scenarios, a business might have a need to become more efficient with data that they've procured over, the lifetime of their business. We can take that and we can put this into a model that will integrate with whatever CRM that they're using to, help them become much more efficient and exacting in their day in and day out operations.
Yeah, let me step in here. Thanks, Cody. Just to piggyback off what Jazz asked there, what are some of the AI solutions that provide use cases that help, SMEs as well as large organizations? Do you have any success stories or something you can point on? Either one of you can answer this question.
Yeah, definitely. I'll probably have Brendon point to one that he had some, direct experience with. And obviously with IBM, our amazing partners that we work with, we have success stories across the globe at this point. But we do have a couple that we've been personally working on that are extremely exciting. We can't go into too much detail, but Brendon can share what he can.
Yeah, so there's a couple that I'll touch on. The easiest is I was a Copilot for 365. So there's a few different versions of Copilot, but Copilot for 365 takes anyone using that Microsoft Office experience and kind of elevates it with embedded in AI. So, you go to Microsoft Word, you can draft an agenda instantaneously just with giving it an outline about what you're trying to do. And instead of typing it all up, taking hours, it'll take you a couple seconds. So time saving. For example, one of the most popular ones of businesses that we implement is the Teams version of Copilot. So what it'll do is it'll record and transcribe everything everybody says, the individual. So it'll say, okay, Brendon said this, Ruben said that, Cody said that, Jazz said this. And then at the end, it'll summarize the entire meeting, hour, 2 hour meeting, say, okay, these are the general topics that were discussed. And then it'll take the action items and say who needs to do what moving forward. Now, it sounds like a pretty basic thing and a pretty basic concept, but when we think about how much time people would take, like the last 15 minutes of a long call and say, okay, who needs to do what, the coordination aspect of it, that was kind of just rehashing what was already said. That's redundant. This takes that redundancy out. People don't need to do that. They just say, okay, check the meeting notes at the end of the meeting, and we know exactly who needs to do what, and we'll follow up on that after. Extremely powerful for businesses of all sizes. Whether it's a tight team or whether it's a team with hundreds of people on it, coordinating that workflow only helps businesses. And that's like a really powerful first step. Not to mention Copilot integrates with Excel, Python code. A lot of people can't Python code. Now Copilot can do it for you. Am I saying you can do it as perfectly as somebody that's a master of Python code? No, but at least you can get it started and get further than you could before. This really helps companies with like projecting financial data based off of what they have. So you can take your past 3 years financial data and then plug it into Excel and then say project the next 3 years, and it'll do that. In a way that is usually a really high skill thing to do and very time consuming. The Copilot can actually help you do that instantly. And another one that's really popular with businesses is the Copilot in PowerPoint. I don't think anybody thoroughly enjoys going in PowerPoint and taking hours and hours and hours to craft slides. What you can do is just throw in some files based off of the presentation that you're trying to make. It will read those files, take the data, and the more information you give it, the better. Garbage in, garbage out. But if you give it quality, high-end information, it'll come with a quality high-end beginning to your presentation. Then you can go through and edit it. I like saying it's like having an intern that works for you 24/7 it can take care of steps 1 through 3 and then leave that person, that high skill employee, with more time on their hands to add that human element and make it more than it could have been. So it's better than the human could have done alone, faster than the human could have done alone, but it's also better than what the AI can do alone. So you get a better product in the end.
Thank you, Brendon. What are some of the biggest misconceptions business owners have about AI?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite questions. There's a lot of different perspectives on this. Mine that I run into is some business owners think that AI is just going to replace all of their employees. Oh, I could just have an AI do that now. I don't need to hire this person. Well, no, because as things stand right now, AI is far, far, far better at making existing employees able to do more with the same amount of time. And when I say that, I don't mean just add more to their workload. I mean it gets rid of the tedious things that a high skill employee normally does and gets rid of the low skill parts that take up a lot of their time. The Microsoft Word example is one of my favorites because, if you tell this one employee, chief executive officer, the CEO, a big part of their job is, creating an agenda. Well, they know the key things that have to happen in this agenda. They can just throw that in right there and create an outline for the agenda that looks professional and well made very quickly, and then go through and make edits. And something that would have taken them hours now takes them 15 minutes. What can they then do for the CEO with that extra time on their hands? They can do so much. And then you could say that with sales, marketing, finance, anything. What can we do that's more either revenue generating or efficiency generating for a business with that time? You're empowering employees, you're not replacing them.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And it's so, so important for, especially like there's only 1, 2, 3 people on a team to be able to get more done, to be more productive. One thing that I'm running into a lot is when people are trying to, use AI in different ways. What are yourselves as developers, right? What are you doing or what do you see happening in the marketplace to make AI tools more ethical and unbiased?
That's a great question. One of the reasons that we partnered with IBM was because their practices are they have an entire governance section of their business that is built around removing that and making sure that the model is built around the data that it's trained with no inherent biases. It's an extremely important part for IBM. We actually have to go through a lot of certifications to make sure that the models that we train are based around that philosophy.
So it would seem as though part of that should be, and I'm very curious to find out if it's happening, diversity in the actual coders, the people who are doing the programming. Is that a piece of it?
Well, so AI is like data in, data out. So, like, let's just say we work with a hospital, for example. It is just strictly trained on the data that they have, obviously HIPAA compliant, things like that. But it is redacted as far as any information that could be like an inherent bias. It's a kind of complicated and deep world, but they make sure that there's no source bias. It is strict facts and data. And that's where like data doesn't lie, so they can train it off of that. But you can't just upload a document that was written by one person that might have had a bias in one way. So like that has to all be scrutinized before it can be loaded into any model that we train, and then have it learn based off of that. So all of the documentation and things like that have to be reviewed before being used. It does make that time a little, more take time to build the LLM a little bit more longer, but the end result means a less biased, more accurate, and more efficient model for the task that we're trying to accomplish.
So as that is being determined, how do businesses kind of maintain, and you touched on it a little bit earlier, how do they maintain kind of a human integration into the AI so it's not a such thing as, oh, I could just use AI, push a button and everything is great. What have you seen and how are those businesses managing that?
Making sure that they understand what AI is. And that's where educating and kind of saying its limitations is really important, because people have a perception of AI can just do that. Well, there's a lot of things it can't do right now. Like I can't just tell it right now, go to ChatGPT and say, do all my work for me and read my computer. Like there are models right now that have computer vision and can take tasks, but they're extremely basic. And even when they do happen, it can only do simple things. One day we will have 2025 is being referred to as the year of the AI agent, and agents in AI are more task oriented, like do this step, then if it looks good, go to this step. There's going to be a lot of growing pains around things like that, just because what if it completes step one wrong, decides it's right, and then moves along. So guardrails are going to need to be put in place, and that's going to be a really big piece of making sure those models are built correctly. But definitely something that is we want people to be aware of, but it's not necessarily at a point right now where it's just plug and play.
Absolutely understood. So, guys, what industries are you seeing the most transformative AI integrations right now?
I mean, really, everybody is. We help everybody, and I see the biggest push right now where it makes the most amount of sense in healthcare. Just because we have true, hard, accurate data. It may be difficult to get, but it's something that's purely trainable, and can actually save lives. There are so many other use cases that we could talk about. Some of them we're actually working on right now that we can't get too far into, and we probably will the next time we have our next podcast. But we're working on these life-saving technologies that are going to become the new norm in our industry, in the next, months to a year. And we're just really excited to see that happen.
As a final thought, I just want to throw out a scenario. Say there is a CEO of a very successful business that has been doing things traditionally without AI, right? And then you have a newcomer who's been in business, a year or two, and they are very open and adaptive to integrating new cutting edge AI technologies. Could you see a scenario where company A is surpassed by company B just because of their willingness and their openness to integrating artificial intelligence?
It's happening left and right, yes.
Absolutely, 100%.
Is there any examples that you can give? Because I just really want the old school traditional CEO to hear this and to be like, I can't let that happen to me. I need to call Cody and Brendon and see what's going on.
Well, for those kind of CEOs, I would say, look, you don't necessarily need to understand all of it yourself, but have somebody on your team that does and can understand it for you, and then help you implement it into your business, because it is going to be whoever adopts it first wins. A lot of industries are being disrupted right now. There was one, I'm trying to remember the company name, who's actually suing because, I believe it was Chegg. They were extremely disrupted by the AI market. It was essentially because AI did everything that they did instantly. And, I'm sorry if there's any Chegg people listening to this, but it was just a platform that was built on something that was replaced by artificial intelligence. And instead of embracing it and what that meant and then evolving to the next level, it was business as usual until it was too late.
Given that we're here in Rochester, New York, where we have an example with old tech with Kodak and
Yeah,
not
that's a
adapting
great one.
we know what happened there. But no, I would like to have a ongoing talk series with you guys, given that we all know that this technology is changing almost daily, to be honest.
It really is. It really is.
Keep updates and kind of meet people where they're at, so people are properly educated on the technology and what's coming and how they can integrate it into their future business and lives as we go on here. So definitely appreciate that. Last thoughts, Jazz?
Just let us know how we can connect with you and future events that maybe you're going to be speaking at here in the Rochester area, and how people can come by and learn some more.
Yeah, LinkedIn right now is probably the easiest place to find our events.
Everybody can, on LinkedIn, they can directly get a hold of me if they want to. And we can answer these questions. And even, if the companies out there that have Microsoft products, we're partners with, most large companies right now. If you are already paying for Microsoft products, we can get you set up under our affiliate link and, potentially save you a good amount of money on that. So there are a lot of things off the gate that we could do to help people just for signing up free of charge.
Love that. Yeah, and we'll have some of your contact information, your LinkedIn links, and your website down in the show notes as well.
Awesome. It's so exciting. I think we're going to do some awesome things here. I think this event in particular is going to do a lot of good for Rochester. At least that's what we're hoping for. There's a lot of old tech here, but they just don't have what it takes to help anymore.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
And that's a wrap on the first episode of Elevating Enterprise. I'm Jazzy T, along with my husband, RJ Williams, and today's conversation with Cody Henehan and Brendon Frazer from ROC AI. We hope you not only enjoyed the conversation, but were inspired to take action in your own enterprise. So here's a few key takeaways you can write down and implement today. Number 1, get in the room. They were interested in AI, so they flew out to Las Vegas to make connections with the very best in the business. And that planted the seed to bring this enterprise level AI back to Rochester. If you want to grow, you have to be intentional about who you know and who you're around. Number 2, it takes money to make money. They didn't wait for opportunities to come to them. They created them. Hosting a free event at Tony D's to build community and attract new partners. Strategic investments in relationships go a long way. Number 3, put in the time. When it comes to developing AI models, speed isn't always your friend. And they stress the importance of taking the extra time to reduce bias in large language models. Because as Brendon said, garbage in, garbage out. Your inputs matter. Whether you're training an AI or building your brand, take the time to do it right.
Engaging.
2025 is the year of the AI agent. Automation is evolving fast, and businesses that adopt early will lead the way. So if this episode sparked new ideas for you, be sure to follow Elevating Enterprise and share it with someone ready to think bigger and move smarter, because success isn't overnight, it's strategic.